Timmy, we're back again.
What's up?
Back again. Good to have you back, my man. I noticed the Chelsea shirt you got on.
It is a tough time to be a Chelsea Football Club fan. I mean, the team on the field is absolutely putting out. Obviously, with what's going on in Russia and Ukraine, like, that's horrific, and everything that can be done to support Ukraine needs to be done. But, yeah, other than that...
What are you doing to support Ukraine?
What am I doing to support Ukraine?
Yeah, you said everything needs to be done. What are you doing?
So... Are
you just one of those one prayer kind of guys?
Invested in Ukrainian business. So some people were going as far as renting out, like Book a Batch type things.
Yeah. What are you doing, my friend?
I am investing in Ukrainian business person, Crix, who makes EverDrives. Legit, true story. EverDrives. So basically, he had a sale because obviously he's having to move, like with the difficulty they're having over there. He sold off a bunch of stuff. There's now people trying to black market sell it on eBay, which has always been...
You are doing a Jacinda Ardern and dodging the question. What are you doing to support Ukraine? You just said everything needs to be done. What needs to be done? So
I'm investing into Ukrainian people. In this case, Crix. If you can buy EverDrives, buy them legitimately. I'm not sure if there's many left.
Okay. Well, I donated some money to Ukraine via the Ukrainian Red Cross. That's how I contributed. But I just thought I'd call you out on that because it's quite funny. But anyway... We're getting off topic. Why'd you make it political, man? We're getting off topic. We're getting...
You asked about Chelsea. Okay, so just quick. I know this is primarily a basketball podcast, but you're talking about one of the biggest sporting clubs in the world. They're not allowed to sell tickets. They're not allowed to have their fans in the stadium for the most part. There were jokes and memes about them not being able to go in airplanes for their European travel. They had to take the bus and get backpacking accommodation. But, like, you can't... People like separating politics and sport, and like I know for a lot of people that's an escape, but sometimes you can't. And if a government's deciding to sanction a football club, then that's definitely not separating them.
Very true.
That's all I'll say.
Very true. Support Ukraine. Okay, let's move on. So, NBA has been interesting the last couple of days. Got a lot to talk about today, as per usual. But something that I think you and I have spoken about countless times,
right?
When I've been kicking your ass at 2K is
lies.
One of the...
Who's the reigning series champion?
The lists that has come out recently. And I know, guys, we're late to the party. The top 75 list come out months ago. I know this, but we haven't spoken about it on air, and I really, really wanted to because there has been...
I mean, it's a key junction point in history because, again, the NBA 50 was a big thing. The big story out of that one obviously being Shaq making it in very early. Some stories like that here where guys are being partially based on success that they have, but partially being predicted for future success.
Yeah, and quite often with these kinds of lists, it's not about who makes it, it's about who doesn't make it. And that's the talking point of today because you can't argue with 60 of those spots. I think the top 60 are pretty much locked in, but it's the last 15 that really, I guess, create a lot of controversy, and I think it speaks to something we were talking about the other podcasts around just narrative and how
do you set the criteria?
How feeling and emotion affects this because, we've got some notable snubs, and let's get straight into who was snubbed. Timmy, who do you think was the most surprising snub of the top 75?
I mean, it's beating a dead horse, and Lakers fan me from 10 years ago probably wouldn't have felt this way, but the answer is Dwight Howard.
Yeah,
it's not really an argument. I've heard combinations of people throwing other people under the bus, and we can get to that of who shouldn't be in there, but you can't really put it down to anything.
Why should Dwight be in there?
So he was the archetype for how to build a particular type of team, and like one of the last remnants of that, a great center builds around shooters. That formula's been adapted to almost LeBron and shooters in some cases, or variations of that. But an absolute menace defensively, multiple-time Defensive Player of the Year.
3? Is it 3? Might be 3.
You need a stat check on that. That should be my job, but I feel like you're right with 3. But just an absolute menace defensively in his athletic prime, a monster on the roll to the bucket. I mean, again, physically, he was one of the most imposing players ever. I'm not going to get into him versus Shaq and Dwight. I don't want, as much as we love Shaq as Lakers fans, don't want him catching feelings over Dwight as he's prone to do. But Yeah, the answer is Dwight Howard. Just and the monumental impact he had, the totality of his career. I think the fact that he's bounced around teams in the second half of his career has hurt a lot of people, and the fact that it's like a common thing we're seeing with players today, like Melo, like Westbrook, of perhaps not accepting a role at first, but then again kind of rewarded for accepting his role in 2020, important part of a championship team, played a key role against Jokic in the Western Conference Finals that year. Absolutely key, getting him in foul trouble multiple games.
Yeah.
So he knows how to, much more now. He had the totality of his career, both in terms of his amazing performances when he was younger, but his mental strength and commitment as he matured as well, which is hard to do because not everyone does that. Not everyone gets the second part of it right. I'm not looking at Russ in particular.
I agree with Dwight being definitely one of the top snubs. I think, in my opinion, there's 3 people who were snubbed on that list, and quite disgusted they didn't make it, in my opinion, just for so many reasons. Dwight Howard is up there for sure. He is one of the 3 that I think had every right to be there. Can you guess what my next person I believe should have been on there?
I've heard a lot of speculation to who people think missed it.
Who do you think I should have had on there?
That you would have picked.
Who would I have picked?
Grady, maybe?
No. The next person I think, without a shadow of a doubt, should have been on there is Klay. I think Klay Thompson, multiple-time champion. Look, if you, and this is where I got so confused, and this is where, like the MVP, the criteria is just, what is it? It's just because you look at some of the people who made that list, and you go, okay, maybe they won because they're champions. Maybe they made the list because of their
outstanding
points
individual
per game.
performance.
Maybe they won the list on that list because they were efficient. Maybe they're on that list because they were great defenders. And you start seeing players and you go, why was that guy on the list? And then I dove real deep into this because I was genuinely trying to figure out how Klay got left off the list. You know, he ticks the championship criteria. He ticks the points per game criteria. He ticks the efficiency criteria. Defensively, he's a good defender.
Absolute plus defender.
And so I even did a basketball reference matching him up against a few people. I don't remember names.
No.
Might have been Earl Monroe, might have been one of the names. And Klay was better than him at everything. He was a more efficient scorer. He was a better scorer. He had more titles. I think something I noticed was MVP rookie. If you were the rookie of the year, I think quite a people on that list ended up getting that. But ultimately, Klay, I felt, was just completely screwed over. The other person that I think should have been on there without a shadow of a doubt is Kyrie. I think when you talk about, and this again I think is another argument, when they say greatest basketball player of all time, what do they mean? Do they mean the best basketball player on the court, the person with the best skills, or do they mean the impact off the court, the influence on the culture? Because that's where I think a lot of that come in. And you've got all these old heads, because I looked at the list and I said, okay, there's a big chunk of names here from a long time ago that no one in this era ever saw play. Were they as good as these guys? No. But did they have a big influence on their culture, on their city, on their teams? Maybe. But does that make you a great basketball player?
Well, this is getting back to what we were talking about with the top 10. It's like, is it a case of who you take in a bottle, like a particular version of a player, just throw them on the court at any given time? Or is it like you're looking at it like a body of work that's been put together? And if it's a body of work, that's where, again, some of the players from the older generations, it's about the impact they've made. It's about the fact that, like, for a guy like Baylor, like one of the first high flyers of the game. So it's like you don't get that lineage of Doc, of Jordan, of LeBron coming forward from that without having that person who's innovated it.
Yeah.
You stand on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah. And it's just whether or not the current NBA modern fan gives a damn about that. Because back in the day, right, yeah, you're right. You have players who would like take over a league and their play styles were what everyone tried to emulate. Dr. Dre, for example, he really made, dunking was around long before Dr. J, but he made it an art form. And that's when people really, so a majority of the players wanted to be like Dr. J, wanted to do all these dunks. And then Jordan come along and he did the same. And now what do you see in today's league? A lot of players want to be like Curry. Everyone's pulling up from three. Interestingly enough, not a lot of players want to be like LeBron, and I mean that in a play style kind of way, because LeBron is the ultimate facilitator. But you don't see that same uptake of people being the ultimate facilitator on a pickup basketball game. Everyone is being Curry these days.
I think this segues off your point a little bit, but it's how complete a player he is. Like, if you take someone of a similar archetype like Magic, there are a lot of people throwing those no-look wild hook passes when Magic was in the league and trying to copy that style. Maybe LeBron hasn't done that as much because, again, it's a complete package in terms of what he offers, but he's not distinctively of that style. Like, he can drive and kick. As an older player, he's added shooting to his game. He's more well-rounded.
You're right. We are getting off topic, but I just want to make that point. But those, in my opinion, Clay, Dwight, and Kyrie are definite snubs. I mean, you and I, like,
I'm gonna disagree. Like, I know you'll be getting to a point there. I'm gonna disagree. So, the reason why these lists will exist this way is, again, the majority of people will take it as body of work, and so Clay, he's still building his. Like, this is me being.
You don't think he's done enough?
This is being devil's advocate for some of the other players here. Like, they've had their totality of the careers. Like, yep, Clay has his titles. The knocks against him wouldn't be so much like his individual counting stats won't be as high as some of those other guys, which isn't to say that they're better players, but they had to lead the team. And it's not that Clay's incapable of doing so, but it's the majority of the time it hasn't been his role to do so. He's been either the second.
Not everyone on that list was a leader of a team, though.
The third, no, and not everyone was. But
so
a lot of so let's measure. The first thing I thought of when you're talking about like a guy like Clay, who's an important part, but arguably not the most important part, at times even not the second most important part, is a guy like Worthy. Worthy, absolute Hall of Famer, Finals MVP, exceptional player for multiple seasons, but at its zenith, he was the third best guy on those Showtime teams. So you could argue the contribution of his success was a huge part to Magic and to Kareem. So the same thing with, with Curry's influence, with Draymond's influence, with KD's influence. Does Clay have the body of work that compares to all those other guys on that list as an individual player? Like, as a team success, I don't think there's much argument for Golden State as, like, if you're talking about the greatest, like, dynasties. But as an individual player, does he make that 75? Are you telling me that in totality his career is better than Dwight's, for example?
I think it's close.
Because, again,
I get your point.
Imagine
you're making.
The reverse, right? Like, you put Clay
but that's
on
what I'm about to say to you. I get the point you're making, but look at Damian Lillard. He made the list.
Yeah.
What has he done?
We may disagree on some of these things. We're not going to disagree on that.
So
the two people they're coming for most is Dame, and we'll go through that and then AD. So let's go through Dame first. Dame is an exceptional player that's on a basketball island. He's had some good plays again, CJ's solid player. He played with
Dame's the reason Kyrie should be on the list.
He's played with Aldridge.
And this is what's so confusing about this whole thing is you look at some of these guys and you see some sort of pattern like, okay, yeah, led his team to the finals. Okay, MVP, multiple-time champion. And you go through the list and you start ticking off all of the boxes that these guys have filled. And then out of nowhere, there's just a guy by himself, like you're Damed, and you're like, hang on, this guy is so far out of the realm of these other guys. How the hell did he make it? And then you look at a guy like Kyrie and you're like, hang on, Kyrie's a champion. Kyrie's a big shot maker.
So I'll go at Kyrie because this was going to happen. He's got one championship, which is important.
Yeah,
but he had arguably one of the greatest performances by a player of all time, leading him there. You can't argue against LeBron's individual greatness in 2016.
No, you can't. But you know the shot I'm talking about. You know the shot I'm thinking about. That was Kyrie, boy.
Does that shot get you into the top 75 alone?
No, but your body of work and your chip does.
Yeah, okay. So that logic,
why is Dame in there?
I'm not arguing for Dame. I'm honestly not. So, like, the logic for him being in there, I'm sure, would be the fact that he's had those series winners. He's had relative playoff success.
Series winners, Mike.
Series winners.
Are you hanging conference banners now, Tim?
No. Again, I'm a Lakers fan. It's about championships. But compared to, like, not everyone on this list, like, again, Karl Malone's on the list. It's not always about playoff success. No, making the finals is important.
It really isn't.
But I think the thing with Dame is more, it's almost like the Russell Westbrook as MVP of the 75 list. He's never really had a stacked team, but he's been consistently deep in terms of, having regular season success relatively to what he's had, making playoff runs, knocking off teams, even taking the Warriors, a couple of times, taking them on quite well was pretty much by himself a couple of times. I think it's just they respect players respect the body of work he has, and I think it's also a little bit of what we talked about with the Russell Wilt MVP voting thing. It's popularity. Dame's obviously a guy who's popular,
and this is my biggest gripe, I guess, being an NBA fan, is just the narrative around everything, man. Like, we know Kyrie just didn't make it because of the vaccine stance. People have come out and said, there's been rumors have come out and said if he wasn't such a diva on all of this stuff, he would have made the list. And then as soon as I heard that, and I think a commentator might have even said it, as soon as I heard that, I just shook my head and thought, how has this become deeper than just the best basketball players?
Humans by nature are petty creatures. That's the reason Dwight's not on the list. I mean, he's been very unpopular because of bouncing around the league, rubbing players the wrong way.
Knocking on players' doors at 3 a.m. and running down the hallways.
Coaches are like saying he's not trying to get a coach fired, and the coach walks up and says, yeah, he's trying to get me fired.
He's in gay guys' DMs on Instagram all the time. Like, he's doing lots of stuff off the court that are getting attention away from what he's doing on the court. Married people, like, he's a character, and he's just a big goofball, which I actually don't mind. I actually like the fact that he's got lighthearted stuff, and again, this stuff shouldn't actually work against him at all, in my opinion. He should be able to DM whoever the hell he wants and make a team and not get criticized for it. But I think off the back of MJ's mentality, Mamba mentality, people associate being
successful
being a psychotic.
Being an asshole, for lack of a better way of putting it.
Exactly. So I think, I think Kyrie and Dwight both suffer from narrative bias here, but Clay is very interesting to me. The other person I would probably have think about
honorable mention,
maybe not being on the list, is Gary Payton.
The glove.
I've never been a fan of Gary Payton, not because he's an exceptional basketball player. He is. I just think what's Gary's body like? Incredible defensively, sure. But what's his body of work?
Could have stopped Jordan,
What's his body of work? Exactly. What's his body of work? Like, I don't see Gary Payton as one of the top 5 point guards of all time. I've got Clay in my top 10 at his position. Easy. Gary Payton probably sneaks in there, but
I was going to say, you don't have Gary Payton in your top 10
Clay does more than Gary, in my opinion. I know they're different positions. I know Gary's a point guard. I know he's a great defensively, but Clay's offense, Clay's defense, it's for me.
I'd take Gary's defense over Clay, but that being said,
Clay's a bigger body and a better, not better,
Gary,
but
Gary, I think would be a more so you see elements of it. I think Clay, modern defending is different because it requires switching and again different capacities. It's almost more about your ability to look at the scheme.
Yes.
But in terms of individual ball defender, which is what a lot of basketball players will fall back to when they pick these kinds of things, that's where for example, the numbers not necessarily supporting Kobe making all defensive teams, but players and coaches voting him in because of the eye test. I think that's the thing with Payton. If you needed someone to try throw at a guy, to intimidate him, to lock him up, to deter his game, Payton's one of the guys that would be on that list of set him on him.
Yeah, but I mean,
and again,
you want a guy who can go out and give you 30,
a floor general as well,
30
an absolute
in one
floor
quarter.
general.
I'd rather the guy that can give me 30 in one quarter than the guy that can go and be a little.
But if you've got the right ingredients around, I think that's the thing with Payton. Payton had decent teams. I'd never say, even with Kemp, I'd never say he had great teams. So it's if you had the right ingredients with that type of guy, it's a little bit similar to Chris Paul, I guess, where it's amazing impact, but just doesn't, for whatever reason, move the needle over the line.
Yeah, because Gary Payton being on, but Vince Carter not being on. I'm not just hating on Gary Payton because he's on there. He's a great basketball player for sure, but it's just who he's not on there at the expense of. And Vince Carter. Tracy McGrady, I get Trace, I get T-Mac, but Vince Carter, I think he was around long enough and did enough to earn a spot on there for sure. You don't stay in the league that long.
So we are looking at body of work now.
Body of work and longevity, yeah. But I'm not saying body of work in the sense that just chips. I'm saying body of work and what you contribute
that's my thing of why
to a team for a long period of time.
I feel how I feel about the vaccine, but I wouldn't disclude Kyrie from the all-time great list because of that. It would be because the body of work isn't there yet.
I don't know about that. Kyrie is... and again, you and I are modern fans. Out of that list of 75, and you and I have done this plenty of times over the years, is we look at it, Tim and I play basketball in real life and on PlayStation. Not for a while yet, not for a while now, but we do it, and we both do it, take turns drafting the greatest of all times. We do a snake draft, so I pick first, he picks second. Clay and Dwight feature on both of our teams over the course of
100%.
Exactly.
If you're building like a
ain't no way I'm putting Gary Payton, Earl Monroe. None of them, Bob McAdoo, Dolph Shade, Bill Sharman, none of them are making my team.
Partly down to the meta of the game you're playing, though. So, like,
I choose
set,
Clay because he's a beast defensively. He's the second greatest shooter of all time.
But see, that's the thing. A lot of the guys you'll pick because of floor spacing and things like that. Like, again, adjusting to having.
In no way will I take any of those names I just mentioned.
To be fair, McGrady features prominently in those drafts as well.
And Vince Carter, who's
Vince on 2K
Dwight
is a
Howard,
killer.
Yao Ming.
He'll tell you.
I take Yao. I take Yao Ming. So
how many times have you sworn at Vince Carter making frees, or just slashing, even taking it to Jordan at the hoop?
Picks or it didn't happen. So, is there anyone else you feel that was shafted? I think outside of those three, and then you've got T-Mac and Vince Carter. I mean, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker.
I actually want to go more back towards the other direction of people not making the list that did make the list. I think AD. I think it does require a conversation. So with AD,
LeBron's teammate, LeBron called him some favors.
I love him. Like, I think he eventually, the hope is his body of work will reach that. But I think at the moment that's a tough pick. That's a tough pick, seeing who didn't make the list.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to be, and it's not being behind AD and not thinking he's a great player, but again, the completeness of guys who have their body of work, you can judge them versus someone whose career hasn't finished.
Yeah, what Dwight did, what Dwight done defensively is better than anything AD's accomplished, both defensively and
I would argue AD's more versatile as a defender, even if Dwight's more impactful because of just his physicality and his height.
He is, but his offense is nowhere near as good as what Dwight's defense was. Dwight defensively is in his Orlando stretch defensively, when he won Depoy,
scary.
There was almost nobody offensively who could match that offensively. Like,
well, I mean, to be fair, people would always, in hindsight, I wouldn't agree with it, but people would always bring that up in 2009 of, well, look at how the Cavs did against them. They were like a great team in the regular season. They ran to the Magic and they got steamrolled. LeBron got his, but no one else did.
Yeah. Exactly. But AD, does he deserve to be on the list? It's tricky because at the end of the day, we can't make an informed decision because we don't know the criteria, and I don't know if there is a criteria.
And on top of that, the amount of film watching, game watching, and all that the people who have made the list have put in. But if we're putting it down to a bullet point, I would, and who to say as Lakers fan, I'd pull AD off the list. I'd pull Dame off the list. I'd put Dwight Howard in there. I think there'd be far less argument there. There'll always be arguments.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think I don't know if there's anybody who thinks Dwight shouldn't be on that list, and if they do, they a lot of
players and coaches.
They clearly don't know what they're talking about, including those NBA players and those NBA coaches. All right, dude. It's just interesting that 75. Most of those spots are locked up now. We're not going to go through and rank them, but because I think they did a pretty good job. But
it's impossible. Look how hard it was just doing a 10.
Moving on, we've had our first bit of fan mail. I'm going to call it, Tim.
Fan mail.
We've had a bit of fan mail where one of our viewers, I'll call them, has sent in a point that they wanted me to bring up.
Okay.
And I'll paraphrase it.
Not a shot at the Lakers, right?
But look, I'm happy. I encourage fan mail. If you've got a question you want us to bring up, let me know, and we'll talk about it.
I mean, you can bring up Lakers points, but we'll just be here the whole podcast, and I'll just argue it.
No, we won't. No, we will not. I'll cut that quick. But anyway, this is to paraphrase. The person wants to know what's wrong with the Knicks and how do you fix them. And they go on to say that Knicks. One of the reasons is Knicks fan base, being that.
Fans can be the reason the team's not doing well?
Well, he makes a decent point where one night you can be getting MVP chance and the next night you're getting booed off the stage, and lots of players not wanting to go to an environment where, like Ben Simmons said, I need to be able to make mistakes, whereas Knicks fans are a little bit more unforgiving.
What did Kobe say to Dwight? Charmin, right?
Yeah.
Charmin.
Yeah, that's right. The second point he makes was that the organization, and this is probably the most, I think, the most interesting point here, is that the Knicks, he claims that the Knicks organization doesn't need to win games to make money, and he's not wrong. He goes on to say ticket prices are about $200 a ticket, and the Garden is always sold out, whereas Cavs are $40 a ticket and barely ever sells out. So he's asking, do you think that the Knicks are, I guess, not incentivized to win games because of the fact that as an organization, and definitely from a business perspective, if you're making money doing the minimum, what's the incentive to actually go out and
Go above and beyond.
And then the last point he makes is just a tax, and this is probably an interesting point, is just the tax in New York is the highest in the country. So you go to play in NY, you're paying way more tax than you are anywhere.
There's always opportunities to mitigate. So it's like
three points there. Let's talk about the first one. What are your thoughts around the Knicks and whether or not the fans have anything to do with why players don't want to play there and why they suck? Do you think the fans have any impact on that?
So there's some parallels with stuff that goes on with Laker fans. And again, I'm not excusing the people who make death threats to Danny Green or any other player. That's rotten. That shouldn't be done. But if you're in this league, part of it is the commitment to obviously working on your game, being an athlete. Part of that is being able to use the energy of that crowd. Whether that's, you can't be too dependent on it. If you're too high, too low, and you're taking in those MVP chants and loving it, and then you let it affect you that much to when you're getting booed out of the arena, there has to be energy in that. Like the amount of great players that will use the energy of away fans, that antagonism, LeBron looking for motivation, going to people in the crowd, Kobe shooting left-handed and telling people to shut up, stuff like that. Again, it's part and parcel. If you're not in a position, I'm siding with Knicks fans, which seems strange, but if you can't take that heat, then get out of the kitchen. It's New York.
Interesting.
And because ultimately, and so
you're saying fans do have an impact? Are you saying that fans do have an impact?
I think fans can have an impact. Ask KCP about his time in LA and the chance he got from some of the Lakers fans, but ultimately he had what it took. He was a success. He was a champion. He had the right stuff.
Yeah, but do you think the fans in New York are scaring away potential superstars, or do you think that they're potentially giving them something to think about, knowing that if I go there and don't perform, I'm going to get berated? Do you think that has an impact?
I don't think that's it. I think it's a combination of things.
No, I'm not asking you if that's the sole one. I'm just saying, do you think that's a part of it?
I think this will hurt Knicks fans, but it's just more that it's been so long since the Knicks were relevant. If you the Knicks operating well, you've seen glimpses of it when they even just made a playoff run last year. That level of high would be very tough to beat anywhere in the NBA. That being said, I just think it's a case where the taxes definitely don't help. It obviously helps more to be in Florida or to be in Houston than to be in Texas.
Let's draw you back because you're waffling here. Do the fans have an impact
on players deciding to come there?
Deciding to go to New York. Do you think, in your opinion?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I think it makes a factor once they're there, but I don't think that weighs into coming there or not coming there.
I think yes and no. I think no to the fact that it doesn't deter players from going there. It might be a small part. It might be, when someone's looking for reasons not to do something,
you can tack that onto the list.
When you look for 100 reasons not to go to the gym, you're going to find 100 reasons not to go to the gym. But so I think if players are looking for reasons to not go and join it, sure, they might say, the fans there aren't that loyal, they're not that supportive. I don't personally think the Knicks' problem is the fans, because ultimately a fan is somebody who believes in you, and that belief, I guess, is conditional on the fact that you provide them some level of entertainment and some level of success. If you're a professional sports person, like you said, and part of getting out of the kitchen, your job, when you sign that dotted line, when you commit to, be a sports star, your job is to deliver those two things. If you're not delivering those two things, you need to be held accountable. Do Knicks fans take it far? Do they take it too far? maybe.
Debatable.
I think the most interesting point there is probably as a rookie, and I guess New York's just a harder, like as if you have a toxic fan base, how hard it is for you as a rookie to develop there. Because I agree with Ben Simmons, you need an environment where you can make mistakes. Like anything in business, you need to be able to provide your employees the opportunities to make mistakes so they can do better. If you're berating them at every mistake, then they're going to grow resentful and they're not going to want to be there. And it's not a place where they can safely flourish, I guess. And I think that's a small part of so no, I don't agree that the fans are the problem for the superstars, but I think they may be a problem for the young guys who's trying to develop and trying to be, because look at Kristaps Porzingis, right? When he got sent there, they loved him because he had a dog. He was I remember the headline was he is a dog. He's got that dog attitude and he's going to bring it out on the court. But he had to have that, and they demanded excellence from him right away. And what happened? It didn't work out. He went downhill, and then boom, you had Rappaport coming out calling him dingus pingus and ripping him like nothing. It's like that's not a supportive environment you want. If you're going to diss every player to your city, that's what's going to happen, Anyway, moving on.
There's one more point I want to make to that.
Yep.
So the cauldrons, the fires, the places like LA, like New York, the mediocrity is going to get thrown by the wayside, but occasionally, you may get the diamonds that come out. The players that can withstand that are going to be the ones you'd want.
Yeah, but let's look at the Knicks' history here.
I mean,
they haven't had a all-star.
Well,
and they haven't drafted an all-star in the last 30 years.
Which is tough.
Which is, you can do all that. We're just being hard because we know one day we're going to get someone good.
Is this going to become an Isaiah Thomas podcast about what happened?
Don't talk to me about that guy. Anyway, do you think that there's any merit to the fact that Knicks don't have to make money?
I think with sports teams it is a thing. So, like, again, pulling a little bit from football, like you've seen it in English football where American owners are coming in, taking over clubs like Arsenal that were historically successful. They will have an amount of success, but the investment required to be at the very top, that bar's shifted and they're happy with being profitable. Like another example is Manchester United. They still in some ways are the most successful club in England, but they haven't really been relevant in a long time because they have owners that took up a big debt to buy the team and they're basically using the profit from the team to pay off that debt. They're not actually paying anything for it.
Yeah.
So I think there is if you're in a position of Knicks ownership, which Dolan, Knicks fans, go have your day. The Garden's going to be successful no matter what. I don't think they have an incentive to be bad, but I don't think he cares about them the way he would care about, say, the Rangers, for example.
You agree with his point. And this is shout out to Ryan, by the way. Thanks for sending us in, Ryan. But so you agree with his point that there's no, I guess, there's
not an incentive to win.
At least from an organizational leadership structure standpoint,
they can be successful where they are. They would like to win championships, but I don't think there's a massive incentive for them to feel any different. I mean, look how they treat their legends.
Yeah, and yeah, good point. So I tend to agree with you. I again, it's a little bit in the grey area, but I think on a business perspective, yeah, Dolan's probably sitting back thinking, I'm making money. I'm the richest team in the...
I do what I want.
I'm the richest team in the league. No one can tell me that I need to go and win championships.
I make great music.
What was this band called? Or something stupid, DB and something.
Rim Shots. Yeah. Rim Shots, something like that? Is that right?
Something like that, but it was... but anyway, I agree with your point around the fact that, yeah, they don't need to be good to sell out tickets, which is so interesting because as Knicks fans, why are you going? Like, I don't want to go and watch my team lose and be mad. Like, why go to an arena full of that energy of negativity? But I think...
It's culture.
And I think the problem is it has to be Dolan, right? And one of my favorite quotes is the chokehold on the growth of a business is always the leadership. And that's from Tony Robbins. And that's what I think is happening here. I think Dolan's been in charge too long. I think he's not looking at this from a genuine sports fan point of view and looking at it like, okay, let's give our our fans what they want. It's more, okay, how can I run this like a profitable business? And fair enough, good on him. But I think in sports ownership, you have to have a bit of that.
There has to be a bit of a mix.
You have to have a bit of that actually competitive, I want to be a competitive team, because there's literally no excuse. I mean, people always say the Knicks were a good team in the 90s. You were an okay team in the 90s. You did nothing. You had Patrick Ewing and you did nothing.
I wouldn't say they did nothing, but yeah, they didn't get there in the end.
Last issue is just the tax. And I think, to be honest, as a player, and to kind of round out the point that this guy made, I disagree with your first point around the fan to an extent. I agree with your second point, and I think the most important point, there's two parts to this last point, which was the tax. I think, again, just like the earlier point, it's players looking for reasons not to go somewhere. So if you've got a culture or an organization that you feel doesn't want to win, if you have an owner like James Dolan, who is a micromanager, and this is the thing, you have people who are in business who go and acquire other businesses strictly because they know that they've got the capital to acquire it, and they know it's profitable, and they know that they can just hands off, walk away, and put someone good in charge and make it profitable and work on other projects. What I think is happening here is James Dolan's got this team, but he cannot step away from it. He can't step away from the daily, right down to the coaching, right down to the meddling with Phil Jackson. I think James Dolan is a bit of a micromanager who I guess is attached to this team in such a way for so long that he can't step away and put someone in charge and trust them to lead them to the promised land. But then again, he's probably looking from a business perspective going, well, I don't need to because we're super profitable.
I mean, yes and no. So you've seen like Leon coming in recently, for example, and the whole idea was, oh yeah, he's leading everything. But again, it seems like it's a revolving door in that case. Ultimately, it does come down to ownership. Ownership will always be the determinant of its success. This feels like a segue into something I know we're eventually going to talk about in Jerry Buss and the rise of the Lakers in the 80s. But if you're not willing, if you just want to run it as a business, that's fine. And there's plenty of teams out there that do that across the planet. But it's always going to be different with sports because that tribalism, that investment from the fans. Just going back to the tax. So I think you're partly right. So it's not so much that players wouldn't consider it, but it's like you probably get more opportunities in New York and can do more things than you could do elsewhere. It's a popular reason people originally attributed LeBron coming to LA because he could do movies and things like that. You get a lot more media access in New York. So I think it's not going to be as powerful as it was maybe in the 80s or the 90s, but it is a lot more of a hub for things. So maybe the stuff like the tax can be negated. And that being said, it didn't stop Katie and Kyrie going to Brooklyn. They're still in New York. They're still paying the taxes.
Exactly. And so to answer your question here, Ryan, what's wrong with the Knicks and how do you fix them? You don't fix them. Dolan's not going anywhere. You need to catch a video of him doing something obscene like the Clippers coach did. Otherwise, he's not going anywhere. He's running a super profitable business of the richest team in the NBA. You can't fix the Knicks, and unless Dolan has
I mean, this is like a spoiler for life. The guy with the power and the money, who's always been in control, isn't going anywhere.
Exactly. So Dolan's not going anywhere. He's not going to sell his team. To be honest, you just need to wait until he gets so old that he just can no longer be involved.
And hopefully doesn't want to give it to his family.
And you have somebody internal that can come in and change the culture. But I think the Knicks are screwed, at least from a management standpoint, for a long time. Now, in saying that, the Knicks' biggest problem outside of Dolan is their terrible draft choices. They cannot draft to save their life. They are terrible at it. They make terrible decisions as an organization. It all started back with, it started way before Isaiah Thomas, but IT and all of the poor management choices. But until then, you guys just need to draft better. New York needs to draft better. Someone needs to put Dolan on an island with a cocktail somewhere and just let
there's
him.
probably two ways. So like the other one I want to segue into that I had a little point about is Tibbs. Like Tibbs is a great coach. I see parallels, again, you'll see the Chelsea jersey I'm wearing of Jose Mourinho, very successful Chelsea coach. Successful for a long time, defensively intense, great player motivator. but there came a certain point in time where his style just didn't mesh with the players as well. I don't think it's that the players don't believe in Tibbs, but
how much was Dolan meddling in that though? And that's the thing, like, you wish it was just standalone. I could blame Tibbs, but
and that's not to say he's even the biggest portion of blame. But my point was more so Mourinho again goes from being a really successful guy, decades, takes on the best managers in the world, gets the reputation of being a guy who can get it done. But there's just a certain point where that style doesn't work anymore, and you feel like there's not an evolution. And I feel like with Tibbs, that's a little bit of the knocks that came against him as he was on his way out in Chicago, again Minnesota. Some of that stuff is cropping up with them, and it's like ultimately the Knicks have disappointed. So there's multiple factors to that. Injuries obviously being one of them, like with a lot of teams. But
so how do they fix it, Tim? How do the Knicks fix it? I gave my opinions. What about you?
I mean, you just have to. I don't think you can just blow up the team, because that's not a really easy thing to do.
Oh, this is deeper than team, man. This is organisation. So how do they fix the organisation?
Well, the simple answer is there's not really a fix. The best thing I think would be is to have a genuine figurehead, and this is something the Lakers, I think, could use with as well. You need someone. The best example I can think of is not Magic with the Lakers, but Magic with the Dodgers, where you can kind of collect people, put the right people in place. You need someone who has a mind for both the sport itself and the business. So like Magic is perfect for that in sports because of his business acumen, but also his understanding of basketball as a game. And I'm not going to get into his time as a president because that had mixed results, but his ability to just pick the right people to do certain jobs, I think, is exceptional. So you need, and I suppose that's what Leon Rose's job is, but...
So to paraphrase for those who could read through the waffle is...
I don't think there's a fix. Sorry, guys.
Beeped.
Sorry.
Knicks are screwed. You just better hope you draft well, which you don't have a track record of doing, and you get a Stephen Curry / LeBron type talent, and you don't trade him away for a terrible deal. That's what you've got to hope for. It's not hard to
turn around, though. So you went from, like...
It's hard to turn around if you don't keep your assets and don't do dumb trades. The Knicks have a history of doing that.
Well, yeah. You have to have the right people there.
Sorry, no Knicks fans here. Moving on. Zion, we spoke a little bit about, but he has come out now as being out basically for the rest of the season. And 2 days later, he puts up a video on his Instagram of him doing a underlegs dunk and landing awkwardly. Quite funny for someone who should be bloody injured and not be able to play the remainder of the season. But again, we know basketball is not just about putting a ball in the hoop. It's political. It's everything. We know Zion probably doesn't want to be there. He showed that through his lack of commitment to his teammates when CJ McCollum got traded there, didn't talk to him. So he's showing signs of someone who's not wanting to be there. I just wanted to touch quickly on it because I thought it was quite funny that, players have, I guess... Have you seen that video of him doing that dunk? It's filthy. It's filthy, and it's he looked in shape. Apparently, he's dropped some pounds, but it talks to and a little bit about the Knicks. It's almost like these organizations can't see or aren't doing enough to make these people really want to be there.
In his defense, you don't know. Like, there's a difference between being able to do something like that in a vacuum and contact. With resistance.
I know. But an under-the-legs dunk after saying you're out all season, I thought was quite
that's
funny.
Not great optics unless you're trying to undermine your team.
Interestingly enough, because I'm into sports cards, basketball cards mainly, but I like other little bits of cardboard with people's autographs on them. But his sports cards have been on a wild journey.
So like that is a big deal for you, right? Like cards, that's.
Well,
this is something we talk about a lot.
It's one of my hobbies just because it's basketball related, and I happen to be an individual who likes to collect things. Some people don't. So, excuse my ignorance, because usually I know a bit about the subject, but I'm completely out of my depth here. Is it like Pokemon? Is it just about catching? Got to catch them all? It's like Pokemon in the sense that they're cards, but there's no real other parallels there. But I'll talk to you about, I guess, that sports cards, because it's a hobby of mine and it's topical. But where I was going with that is Zion sports cards when he was a rookie, just before he was coming to play, were selling for ridiculous amounts. There was a point in time where he was the most graded sports card ever, one of them, I think. Or
he's got to be the most hyped guy since LeBron.
Yeah, and so his sports cards, in line with that, went through the roof. And his sports cards... his rookie cards are selling for thousands, and some of them still do, but they were selling for thousands US dollars. And then he got injured, and his sports card stock plummeted a little bit. But when you get injured, people not plummeted, dropped a little bit, but people still think, he's coming back, so we'll hold on to his cards. He didn't return, and he had a second surgery. Bam, they hit a low, and about a week ago, we were probably at the lowest point ever of Zion's cards, where they lost 70% of their value easily. He put up that video, and now his cards are back on the rise, and people are now starting to buy because they're understanding that he's actually not that injured. So yeah, a good place to watch is sports cards, because a lot of the times the value of cards are based on how well someone's doing for not just a short stretch, but a long period of time.
Big picture.
And I'll tell you a little bit about sports cards, and I actually bought some with me, because I need to actually kind of explain to you. But basically, Panini, have you heard of Panini, the company?
Panini, collectible cards. They do football too.
So they've got the exclusive, I guess, production rights to NBA teams and players. I think other people can print cards with players on them, but you're not allowed to use their sports team, the NBA team. So I know there's some unlicensed stuff going on, but basically Panini has the exclusive distribution rights to NBA players and their teams.
And the brands.
And the brand. Now, interestingly enough, actually, I think that's expiring in a year or two. So
it's a big contract.
It's huge, but basically they have the right. So any NBA card you buy, that is going to be Panini branded. And so you know nothing about it, right? So I'm explaining it. Okay, so Panini basically decide what they release and what products. So within Panini's organization, they do sports, UFC, soccer, whatever. But in basketball, they'll have about anywhere from, I would say, 20 to 30 different releases, right? So they'll have a set that they call NBA Hoops. Then they'll have a set that they call NBA Optic. Then they'll have a set that they call Origins. And they'll have a set called Elite. So it's just different sets, and they all just look a bit different. And within those sets, you'll have rookie cards and veteran cards.
And rookies, I'm imagining, being the most valuable, because that seems to be limited understanding, but I know that rookie cards usually...
So rookies are the most valuable. Veterans, depending on who they are, like if they're LeBron or Steph Curry, can be valuable. And then they do like special inserts where a card of a cool design, they'll insert it into a pack, and then they'll do autographed cards or memorabilia cards where they get a bit of game-worn stuff and they'll put it on a card. So those really are like the 5 types of cards. And so throughout the year, they'll release, NBA Hoops. And the cards range from low-end, cheap, to high-end, expensive. And we're talking, I think the latest Flawless was about $15,000.
$15,000
for a case that
so
had 7 cards in it.
So what's the floor, and then the ceiling's $15,000?
Oh, millions. You've got, so for example, right now as we speak, there's a break going on. There's a card, basically, so you know how I told you had different sets, and then within those sets there's different inserts, right?
Right.
On the very high end, it's Flawless, and it's a silver briefcase, and it has 7 or 8 or 10 cards in it. And people usually are chasing autographed cards. This year's Flawless actually has little diamonds and rubies and sapphires in the card. But the thing that people are looking for most is, that little NBA logo? If you get an NBA logo on a card, it's considered an NBA logo man, and it's one of the rarest cards there are. And if you get that and a picture of the player, it's called a logo man card, right? There's a LeBron James triple logo man card. So not just one, but 3, one from the Cavs, one from the Lakers, and one from the Heat. Triple logo man card on one card. And people are putting bounties on it already, saying, if you pull this card, I'll pay you $1 million. Some people are offering 1.5 million US for this card. So, yeah, you buy in at 15K, you might pull a logo man and get millions. I mean, Luka Doncic, I think, has got one of the most expensive cards, and that might have sold for a few million, and that was his rookie patch auto. So, basically, I'm huge into cards, and I've got some here. And, this is a Steph Curry autograph. Some people will get cards that have the autograph as well as a bit of his singlet in there. So I collect it as a hobby. I like Steph Curry. I like KD. Those are the 2 that I collect. I collect sports cards. And basically, rookies are the most sought after. But it's also very risky, right? Because if I invested all my money into Zion
and he doesn't play
and
in the
he
NBA
doesn't
again.
play in the NBA again, I'm out a lot. And that happens a lot. And then you look at the likes of Giannis. Giannis wasn't by no means one of the top
Hyped.
rookies in his
He was not
class.
hyped.
He was real low. And so people just ignored his cards when the sets come out. And when he exploded, people realized, oh, shit, where are my Giannis cards gone? So it's a fun hobby to just follow. And you get into it for the love of trading. Now, there are two types of collectors. Your first collectors are people like me who just like to collect sports cards of my favorite teams. I don't even own any Laker cards. That's how much you do it for the hobby. Then there are people who do it just for the money. And it is a profitable thing. You can make a lot of money. You can buy a whole lot of stock. You can do breaks online. You can get lucky. And there's two ways to collect. So I collect for the hobby. I like to trade. I like to just build up my personal collection. And then the other thing I'll mention to you just quickly is just around grading the cards. So if you get a card in a pack, and you would have heard of PSA in Beckett?
PSA I've heard of, yeah.
Yep. So it's where people get their Pokemon cards graded. So you send your card into PSA, and they'll base it. And if you get a 10, it's considered gem mint, and you can put a premium on your card of anywhere from double what it's worth. So if I send in a card that's worth $1,000, and I get it graded and it gets a 10. No, sorry, if it's worth, I can get probably 10 times the money for it if it's a PSA 10, because it's really hard to get a 10, so you'll have a lot of 9s. But that's basically how the card system works. And what's amazing about it is I'm only new to the card collection scene, but the amount, how hard it is to get stock and product. People are buying this stuff like crazy.
It's like anything that's profitable.
These things
I guess
are
you need to
taking
mine it.
over. Exactly. So that's just a little bit on sports cards. I'm not sure if you're a collector. I've seen some of the stuff you collect, but you're probably not the collector as I am. But cards are definitely an interesting way to track players and track how they're going. And if card prices are going up, then there's
Belief in that player.
Then there's belief in that player from enough people that they think he's making a comeback. And Zion is cards making a comeback. So for those who are reading into that, might be time to buy into some Zion before he goes too crazy. But the real
Might
time
be
to
too
buy
late already.
the real time to buy him was the last few months, but it was interesting. But moving on from that, something you mentioned to me was a show that, I'm going to be honest, I saw the trailer and I wanted no part of it. Not because it was Lakers. Actually, I would have happily watched it if it was a documentary type style. But what I saw, to me, just was so cheesy and so, I just wasn't a fan. So tell me about it. What's Winning Time, man? Because I see it.
So Winning Time is a loose dramatization, and I say loose because we can get into the specifics, but a loose dramatization of the rise of the Lakers dynasty under the ownership of the late Dr. Jerry Buss.
Okay.
And so it kicks off late 70s. Jerry West's coach of the team. Kareem's there. They're looking at a great position because, again, they're in a coin flip with Chicago. They have the number 1 pick in the draft. Larry's already been drafted by Boston. He's lost in the NCAA finals against Magic.
Mm-hmm.
Outstanding game.
Mm-hmm.
And it basically so for those who don't know, which I imagine will be a lot of people, Jerry Buss, probably one of the most successful owners in sports. This is, in essence, his origin story. He was a property owner and developer. Interesting guy, like a bit of a scientist as well. So worked on like military engineering or rockets or something like that. Again, just interesting side hustle to have. But
already not enough basketball.
He puts all cards in to get a hold of the Lakers. The Lakers at this point have a reputation of being, we'll say, mediocre. So there's a bit of Red Auerbach in there, which is interesting, and he kind of gives his perception on them, which is they've never been perceived as a winning team. This is a team that lost to Boston multiple times in the finals, had not managed to beat them to that point.
What a shame.
This is a team that had one championship since it had moved to Los Angeles. And so it basically picks up with, I mean, it's the 80s.
So it's basically the show's basically about the Lakers' origin, not origin, but
it's more about the
pre-Showtime
characters.
Lakers origin.
I'd say it's more about the characters. So it deals with Magic and his family and coming from a religious background, and that mixed with the experiences he's had in Los Angeles as a young successful athlete.
So it's not so much about basketball and on the court like Last Dance was. It's a bit more around like
the environment,
the life, and and how do you rate it? Do you like it?
I think it's good. Now a lot of Lakers fans and people involved in basketball, even hell, it got to the point where Gary Vitti, the longtime Lakers head medical trainer, who was involved at the series at the start, is both on screen as an advisor, washed his hands of it because he said that Jerry West in the show isn't like it at all. I love the Jerry West character in the show, as long as you realize it's not what the real one was like.
He's dramatized, and
he's throwing. So
what's the point of the show?
So to defend the writers, right? So Jerry West was known for being an intense guy. He was very competitive. He internalized losing for some reason, sometimes more than winning. He was obsessed with like trying to right that wrong.
Yeah, but why? What's the point of the show? You're not going to reflect the characters.
He was a quietly intense guy. It's really hard to characterize someone as quietly intense and get across how much it means. So it's a lot easier to have him swear, throw his MVP trophy through a window, have it fall apart. It's a lot easier to express.
So my question
it's easier
is,
to show than to tell.
What's the point of this show? Like, is it supposed to be like sit back on a Sunday and just chill out and watch? Or so it's not really like a basketball doco, is it? No.
So, John C. Reilly's done an amazing job, and I'm imagining there's going to be some nominations for his performance as Dr. Buss. It's fourth wall breaking. He literally looks into the camera and explains the situations as things are happening. And again, it depends on your perspective. It won't be for everyone, but it's kind of an entertaining way of telling the tale of Jerry Buss.
So it sounds like I'm going to give that a hard pass.
Well, I'm not surprised the Boston fan isn't going to
enjoy it. I was actually open to watching it, but I didn't realize it was such a drama. Is this what Shortland Street, but with the Lakers?
So the brains behind the series is... I want to say Adam McKay. So if you've seen Step Brothers,
I have.
If you've seen Semi-Pro,
I have.
Again, this is the brains behind this, and it's been covered a bit elsewhere, but I imagine you wouldn't be familiar with it. So there's obviously the partnership between McKay and...
I'm going to stop you there. If you're comparing this show to Step Brothers and the other one you just bloody mentioned, then I already know I'm not watching it. Moving on to our last point of the day, Timothy. Brooklyn.
It's a good show. Watch it.
Brooklyn. Kyrie's back. Kyrie is back, baby. They've lifted the mandate. He can play, which I didn't see coming at all. But
it's not
Brooklyn,
not a great look for
favourites again in the East. Are they the favourites?
I think with the fact that he would be playing all the games and the kind of ominous form, I guess
he's on a tear
over the past few weeks.
He's on video game mode.
You can't factor it out. There's still a lot of time between now and June.
Drummond's playing good. He is doing well.
We'll see how that... again, a lot of people can look good in the regular
season. Patty Mills, Seth Curry,
I believe in Mills. I think they're the favourite. I think they do become the favourites. I'd already kind of had them on the brink of maybe last time we talked.
With Ben Simmons, right? Ben Simmons, yeah.
I'd almost say without even. It's almost at that point.
I don't know if I'd go that far without Ben Simmons. I watched a game yesterday with them against Grizzlies, and the Grizzlies are a team, man. I love that team.
Their performance without
Jar. They are a great team without Jar and with Jar. But I was watching them, and the one thing they need is defense. They've got offense. They've got 100 points between KD.
They've got points.
They've got 100. Yeah, they've got 100 points easily between three players: KD, Kyrie, and Mills, and whoever wants to step up on the night. So they've got 100 points there easy. It's their defense. It's their defense that I'm a little bit worried about. I think with Kyrie, they are 100% the favorite. Oh, sorry, with Kyrie and Ben Simmons back. Even I'll take 75% Ben Simmons. I don't need your offense or your passing. Just give me your D, man. Okay, hang on. Let me say that again. Give me your defense.
Hey, if you want the D, you can just get in his DMs.
Give me your defense. But if he's 75% of what he was, I take Brooklyn all day, every day.
They do look a bit ominous with him back.
No,
that's a bit of a.
I want to make a bet with you. Are you in? This will be for hopefully.
Well, I don't do blind bets, so.
How far do you see the Celtics going? We said it last podcast. I can't remember.
I'd say the furthest they'd go would be the Eastern Conference semifinals.
Celtics will make the conference finals this year.
Okay. So what's the stakes?
If they do, you wear a Boston Celtics singlet on our next podcast.
Are you providing the singlet? Because I'm not going to keep one of those. Okay. So
I'll tell you what.
Is the bet Boston versus LA? Because I can provide you a singlet.
I'll tell you what. The answer is yes to both of those. I will give you a singlet. I'll give you a Larry Legend singlet to wear. And if they don't, I'll wear a Clippers singlet just for you.
It'll be magic. It'll be magic.
I'll wear a Clippers singlet just for you.
It has to be magic.
Is that a deal?
It's magic or it's no deal? I'm not going to make you wear
It's
Kobe.
whoever you want.
It has to be Magic
It's
Johnson.
whoever you want. It's whoever you want. Is that a deal?
Camera's got us. We'll shake.
That's us. Celtics to the conference finals, baby. Let's go.
Not making conference finals.
Here we are, baby.
Willis.
We're on.